Welcome to the Winning Cultures podcast. I'm Jason Piasecki. Culture is one of the most powerful tools organizations have to attract and retain great people. And the ones that know that tend to win. Today I'm joined by Skylar Meade, head baseball coach at Troy University. Skylar pitched for Louisville in the 2007 College World Series. He took a Troy team that was 22-25 in May, all the way to Omaha in this year's College World Series. Thanks for taking the time today, Skylar.
I appreciate you having me on. Excited to do this.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to talk about your baseball journey from Louisville to Troy. We'll get into what you look for in a recruit. We'll go back and we will revisit this past spring, and then we'll talk about building a winning culture when much of your roster turns over every year. So let's start talking about your baseball journey from Louisville to Troy.
Yeah, it's been, this is year 20 now, which is crazy to say, but wrapped up my career, fortunately playing in Omaha, which was pretty amazing for myself and all my teammates at Louisville. And I was on a group text this morning from Coach McDonald there, trying to make sure we're all going back for the 20th year reunion in January. So funny that we start the podcast bringing that up. But I was fortunate right out of playing. I got into coaching like 9 days after playing in Omaha, and I worked at Eastern Illinois University, was essentially the second assistant and pitching coach, and I had full autonomy and control as a pitching coach at 22. And thankfully, we won a couple titles my first couple years. I'm sure not a lot of people know a ton about Eastern Illinois. Maybe they know Tony Romo and Mike Shanahan and Sean Payton and Jimmy Garoppolo and many other football people. Brad Childress, maybe don't know the baseball as much, but had a great 5 years there, and then moved on to Middle Tennessee State for 2, which was great. Murfreesboro was a kind of a quickly growing place, 25 miles outside of Nashville. Had a great experience there. Jim McGuire, whom I still talk to, is one of the best people on the planet. And then the late summer of 14, we got a call from Michigan State, and at my wife's nudging initially, because I wasn't sure I was that interested, we took the interview, and the moment we got to Michigan State, I realized, oh man, this is a pretty awesome place, and we enjoyed 3+ years up there. The Big Ten was, at that point, starting to invest in baseball a little bit, and you could feel that, and so great time to be in that league. And then, in kind of odd timing, but November of 17, got a call to ask if there was interest in South Carolina, as their pitching coach had taken a retirement or medical leave. Jerry Myers, one of the greatest of all time, now the head coach of Middle Tennessee State. Funny how the world's very cyclical, but I certainly was not going to pass up an opportunity to get in the SEC at a program such as South Carolina. So got that job, fortunately, and we had an awesome 4 years there in Carolina. 1 year, unfortunately, being the COVID year in 2020, but ended up parlaying enough success to, strike the attention of Brent Jones in the summer of 21. And we built a great connection, relationship, friendship, and thankfully on July 14th of 21, became the head coach here at Troy. And it's been a fun 5 years ever since. Obviously, we've had a lot of fun, a lot of success. I think certainly this year's success has been the most notable, which certainly when you do what our team did this year, it puts you in different stratosphere of notoriety. But man, we've had a great time here. It's been really cool being a head coach for 5 years, and I plan on doing it for a lot longer.
Yeah, you and I met about this time last year, and I should say for everybody, my son Aaron played for Troy this spring, and so it was about this time last year that you and I spoke when he was considering Troy, and I have to say it worked out pretty well for him. So let's talk about recruiting. And when you look for a recruit, what type of characteristics are you looking for in a student athlete?
Well, I think there's a couple different factors, and let's at least connect the dots. As you said, Aaron was an 8th rounder out of our place, one of the best senior bats in the entire country. It's really not debatable. Certainly the Astros invested in him and taking them where they did and putting the money into him that they did, which you don't see that a lot with seniors. It tells you how good he is. But, you talk about what we look for, right? Like there's guys like Aaron that are just simply producers from an offensive perspective. They don't miss on things in the zone. But what I liked about Aaron was I could tell that was a motivated kid, and one that wanted the opportunity to show everyone in the country and was looking for a platform to show him how good he was. And he wanted to win and all the stuff that matters, but like the individual aspect of when you're recruiting a kid and you're trying to identify the baseball, is this a reality? Is this a fit? Is this the competitive level of kid that we can get? We were absolutely certain on that. And so we were jumping up and down when he made the decision, and everything that he did from a numbers perspective, an impact perspective, an improvement perspective, none of that was surprising to us. So, when we look at position players, we're looking at kids that, don't swing and miss in the zone. Obviously, we want them to be multi-positional. We like left-handed hitters. Not that we hate right-handed, but we do like left-handed hitters around here. But we just, we want kids that are going to have great, communication skills, because we think that's very important in our program. We coach with a lot of honesty. But I think it doesn't mean that everything we're saying is right, but we need to be able to communicate with our players. And even if at first it's not necessarily like, I told our guys this in a meeting yesterday, like not everybody's going to go like this day one. In fact, that would be weird if, coach to player, player to coach, even with having new coaches, there's going to be parts where we're like figuring things out, but we have so much room to grow. But if you have those communication skills, which we look for in recruits, then we know that they're going to fit and be a great player when it's real time come February. As it pertains to pitchers, I mean, look, we do like guys that we think are going to end up having the ability to throw hard and punch tickets, strike guys out, have some sort of, 1 or 2 plus off speed pitches. I do like big bodies, but it doesn't mean that I don't love my little, athletic guys that might be able to spin and locate and just uber compete. But you also look at the big leagues and big wins. And, for us, we've had 11 arms going to pro ball the last 4 years. That's a pretty substantial number. And so we want guys that are motivated too. This goes for both position and pitcher alike. While sometimes it may be delusional, we want guys that think they're going to play in the big leagues. And if they aren't motivated in that way, then they're probably not going to be a fit for us. If they want to have a good experience and win, that's fine. But we need them to be, internally motivated by the fact that they think they can be a pro. I understand that sometimes the reality hits every person that, hey, my dream might be ending soon. But I want us to have the longest runway until it hits that point for these guys, because that motivation it takes to be a great player, that almost delusion you have to have, we need that in our program so that they can be motivated properly each and every day as they go about their individual and team work collaboratively.
I will say it is advantageous to be a left-hand hitter with that Trojan wall out there in right field.
Hey, there's no doubt. Listen, we enjoy the matchup problems that we give to teams. That's probably never going to change. I've told the story a couple years ago. We have a kid who's on our team now who's a right-handed hitter, but his mom asked me, she really followed baseball, and her son's a right-handed hitter. And she asked me, the desk I'm sitting in right now, she's like, I mean, do you think my son will fit? I know you guys don't really tend to like right-handed hitters. And I'm like, that wouldn't actually be totally true. We like Caleb Barolero. He's in Double-A. We have Jimmy, who might be a top 5 pick in the draft, and many other great right-handed hitters. But I understand the sentiment. We still love our lefties, and they fit very well here at Riddle Pace Field.
Culture is one of those words in sports that can be overused. What does culture mean to you?
I'll keep it very simple, and I do think sometimes you get overused, but I also think if you're someone that has really believed in that from the moment you've had the opportunity, which for me has been 5 years, and I'll tell you exactly what we said to our team. We have shirts that says it, and I think we put this into action every day in some form or fashion. But we've won a lot here in my 5 years, and we're really proud of that. But we win because of our culture. Our culture is what equates to winning. It's not that we've won and then everyone thinks we have a great culture. And I think you got to put the culture first, and then the other stuff will follow. But the culture allows you to have continued success. It allows players to stay in your program. It allows you to retain your players. It allows you to get the next player that wants to play with your great guys, your studs, your known commodities. You have to have that. And I think if you have a culture that has a lot of holes in it, and don't get me wrong, we're in a day and age where everybody has a voice, right? Like, I get it. There's some parents that probably disagree with something, or I do or say in a moment, whatever. That's fine. But you're also not me, and you don't have to juggle all the things. So I'm probably doing it maybe better than you would. So have a little bit of understanding that we are doing everything we can to most maximize your kid. Somebody's not going to play. It's baseball. I can go 9 kids on the field, and I pitch probably 4 or 5 a game. I get it. There's 35 to 37 players on the roster. Somebody gets left out. But nobody's trying to screw your kid, you know? And I think we try to preach that with honesty, but also empathy. And I think our players understand that. And I think that helps us to, you know, have guys that sometimes maybe they're not the dude in year one, but they morph into it. We have the guy who is a dude, and his ego doesn't get out of check with his family, his people, and they realize this is the best place for me to thrive. And when people feel that way, then you can continually have great players in your program that you don't have to go procure, so that you can continue winning at the level you want to win at. And look, I'm a greedy guy. You've known me for a year. Everything we're doing, we're trying to win a national championship. And anything aside from that is going to be not what our goals were. And so I have to motivate in that way, but we have to have our building wired that same way too.
We're living in an era with the transfer portal that rosters turn over, and last year 60% of your roster was new. How do you build a culture in a time so it doesn't walk out the door with your seniors every year?
Well, I did strike it. Obviously, honesty, I think, is at the forefront of what we do. But I also think you can't live in just the very recent past, or you can't talk historical sometimes. You got to really just always be forward thinking. And what I mean by that is I can't go in the room and be like, man, we did this 3 years ago, and remember how this worked, guys, and believe in this. It's like they don't care. Like, our guys are great. They listen. I know they do ingest the information that myself and our coaches give. I do know that and believe that. But they don't care what Caleb Bartolero did here in 2023. Like, that doesn't really resonate with them. Now, look, I do think to an extent, and this is going to be very interesting as this year goes, like, there are going to be, because of the notoriety and what happens when your program goes to Omaha and nearly wins a national championship, there are some new players that can see things and be like, hey, man, like, I mean, look, Jason, let's just use your son as an example, because I think it's fair. I'm sure many people doubted that he would play shortstop at such a high level, right? And it doesn't mean he didn't play it for 71 games for us, but he played it for half the games, which I'm sure shocked many of people, but we told him he was going to have the opportunity to do it. And we were honest in that. And then sometimes, because the team or things happen and you got to make moves, it doesn't mean that you're lying, right? It means, hey, we're in a pivot stage, but understand, stay ready. And then when you stay ready, you're then ready to have success. And I think because players see that and know that and have at least enough connection to go, hey, man, that did happen with AP, or, man, they told Rigsby Mosley he was going to pitch and he pitched. They told Drew Nelson that he would have a chance to hit at Troy. And he only had 10 at-bats his first year when he pitched, and then he became an everyday first-team all-conference player. They can look through and go, hey, man, they're going to play who deserves it. They're going to play them where they deserve it, how they deserve it, when they deserve it. And there's no care of how much money they're making, what their scholarship is, what their history is. They're going to try to make the most educated decision for the team to have the ultimate success, with no individual narratives or, anything exterior. It's all about what's important to help the team win. And I think guys do believe that, You being a parent, I think you probably have experienced that in many ways, probably through high school, through injury, through getting back, through junior college, through two separate Division I programs. You've probably seen that as well, and can certainly understand that sometimes you go, hey, I might not love what's going on, but I understand. Then sometimes, man, I don't love what's going on because I know that's not the right reason. And then other times you probably go, I wonder, okay, there's probably something I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many levels to it, but you have an awareness, but you've also got to experience things that maybe, let's say a freshman parent comes in and it's 10 games in, they just don't know. They don't have the ability to have seen the experiences you have as a 4-year collegiate parent at 3 different schools, 3 different atmospheres, 3 different levels of success, if you will. And so I also think that educating people and keeping an open line, but also not subjecting myself to, the wrong type of communication with parents, with agents, with people in their circles. You got to keep a proper line within that.
Mhm. It's very complicated in today's landscape, and one of the things that I really felt and experienced in Troy as a parent was a sense of family and community. And we had the opportunity towards the end of the season to sit up in the Unger Family RBI Club, and as soon as we walked in there, we were brought up by some season ticket holders, and they were introducing us to people, the CEO of the hospital, the fire chief, Greg Unger and his family, and just the passion that Troy, Alabama has for the Trojans. It was definitely something special, and to feel that as you made your run through the Sun Belt tournament, through regionals, supers at Troy, which was just an amazing atmosphere, and then Omaha eventually. I mean, there truly is a sense of community and family in Troy.
Well, and I think too, and I say this often, sometimes when you're describing things, you feel as if, I'm just speaking from the heart here, you're describing what your program is. So sometimes it feels like you're actually talking about yourself as if I'm doing all these things. And I think you're hitting on a great point that we try to articulate. What you don't know about Troy is how comfortable you're going to feel, how the atmosphere and the people, the community, the fans, how a Rick Smith, the CEO of, Troy Regional, is also a guy that if something happens to, someone in my family, to me, which I've had this happen, like my dad's had some serious health things. Rick, I got to get in there. Boom. Hey, give me 2 minutes. Right? And I'm using him as an example, but I don't know if every school has it where people who are in certain positions of every person's important, but every person here is the same. And I think that's a very unique thing that Troy has, that essentially, honestly, I'm privileged to represent, but I don't have anything to do with that. These people being good people and caring about Troy, I didn't do that. I'm sure I accentuate their excitement by being the head coach of a team that wins. Yeah, I get that. But these people are great people, and they care about these kids, and they make them feel more comfortable in their day in, day out life. And guess what? In our sport, if you're comfortable more days than you're not, you're probably going to optimize your ability to play well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very many places where someone like Rick, who's the CEO of the hospital, is sitting with your son when he's in the hospital getting an IV because he's too dehydrated to play a game. So it was definitely a special vibe that's been built there. So let's talk about the last 2 seasons prior to 2026. In 2024, 2025, Troy was one of the last teams left out of the NCAA tournament. What as a head coach did you tell those teams after you guys didn't make the cut?
So, I mean, in 24, we went on a hellacious run in late April through the first part of May that got us nationally ranked, that had us, in a pretty great spot. And we had some really close games that we lost late. A heartbreaker in 12 innings at Texas State. A Southern Miss. We had a 2-run lead in the 8th, loss in the conference tournament. A close game to a very good JMU team. So we had some things that were close, and I also understood that some of our metrics were going to have us, and we were I think the 3rd team left out, and I understood that. A couple teams got in that I didn't agree with because we beat the heck out of them, and I didn't necessarily enjoy that. But if you ask me, do you understand why your team was left out? I did understand. And I'm not naive to that. I'm going to fight for our team, but I also understood, okay? And I explained that to our team that we just did not do enough. Yeah, I know we're very close, and is it unfair at times? Certainly. But we didn't do enough. 25 was a different deal. If you followed just college baseball in general, I mean, we were ranked every single week. We were 14th in the country going into the last week. We were the last team to lose a series. The one series we lost at home late was to the hottest team in the country in Southern Miss, who became a, national seed, meaning they're really good. So they were rewarded for beating us, but we were punished for losing to them when they were considered great after beating us. And we didn't choke in our conference tournament. We won multiple games. We lost a heartbreaking 2-1 game to them, and we were somehow left out. And I was certainly not happy about it, and I made that known for an extended amount of time. And by extended amount of time, I mean all the way through May of this year. And I understand that now I'm rewarded as we sit here in August. No one can tell me that I was wrong on everything that I said, and I do understand that. I don't say that to be an egotistical prick. I say it because I knew what our program could do when given the rightful opportunity. And I can understand. You can sit here and debate me, and we're all as coaches and leaders, we have an element of stubbornness. You have to. But I'm not an idiot. I understand in 24. 25 was a joke. We should have never been left out. It was ridiculous. I'm not saying our team would have went to Omaha, but we were a great team. And we had done the necessary things in the course of a 60 games that we played to earn that right. And I was pained for myself, for our players, for our coaches, for our university, everybody, because it was a joke. And I made it known, and I wasn't afraid. And I do say I in this because I wasn't afraid to put my, self on the line. And I understand that leads to some, in our world of social media, maybe I wasn't the golden child kind of cool young coach anymore. So people probably didn't like that. And I don't really care because I had to fight for our program. But I think our team being really tough and having that edge that was portrayed and talked about, I think it helped our team fight through the toughest schedule in the country that we had. I think it's why we played so good late. It's why we were in the position we were to do things necessary without going through every single aspect of it to be in the NCAA tournament. And then what we did in the NCAA tournament was because our program's always been prepared for this. Now, but you also, Omaha is I think the toughest thing to get to in all of sports. The road it takes, what you have to do, the disadvantages that some programs outside of certain leagues are in. And we did that. And I said it in Omaha, so I'll repeat it again. I don't really care. I feel incredibly validated because I'm glad I stuck my neck out there. I'm proud that as the leader, I did that because I think that was what was necessary for our program. That doesn't mean I'm going to do that this year, but I felt like last year that's what it took to make people realize what we've been doing, to take a closer lens at what we were doing, and for our players to have an edge and an element of, hey man, we are going to find a way, no matter what, no excuses, to get us the opportunity that we rightfully deserve.
One of the things that really struck me, and thinking back on the first time I set foot on campus and at Riddle Pace Field and walking around, and there's a sign on the wall that said the road to Omaha starts here, and I saw that, and I'm like, okay, we're at Troy. I get it. You want to be optimistic, but I was kind of like, okay, come on. And then to see it manifest the way that it did was really something special, and I think that does speak to the culture. So when you come to establishing a culture, who sets the culture for the Troy Trojans? Is it the players or the coaches?
It's a really good question, and it was funny because I kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday. I obviously I do understand that I have to maybe set the culture. I think I kind of, as the head coach, you set these expectations and you give like the direction or whatever. But I think the players make the culture, and I think there's two separate parts. I think our players make the culture because we have great kids, and we really have great kids. I don't have to deal with like crazy stuff like you might hear stories of in college athletics. I don't. My crazy things are like, I remember like 3 years ago, we got back from a regional and they were like, hey, like somebody played catch in their dorm and they broke a door and then they owe $107. I'm like, so a baseball hit a wall and yeah, that was it. And I was like mad about that as if that was a big issue. You know what I mean? And that's like child's play. That's nothing, you know? But I think it's because our players, in combination with what we set forward, they're just good kids. They're good kids. They love baseball. They do stuff together all the time. Yeah, do we help facilitate that as coaches? Yeah, we have to, of course. But I think when you have good kids and it's clearly articulated what you believe it's gonna take, and then they take that that bull by the horns, if you will. That's why I just think we've had the ability to continually win at an elite level, and I'm really proud of that. And I think that goes to recruiting and us trying to identify the right people to bring into the walls and to bring into this great town of Troy.
Well, let's talk about that road to Omaha. Sunbelt Tournament, 11:07. You guys lost an absolute gut punch to Southern Miss. Grand slam, walk-off, home run. You had to be back on the field at 9 o'clock the next morning in a win-or-go-home game. What went through your mind those 10 hours?
I do think part of you is, I have a really good memory. I don't know, how well you know that, but I can remember really every pitch call for 19 years. It's kind of a problem. So there's a lot of like, all right, what can we have done different? What will we do? Like all those things you're kind of thinking of. You're mad. I don't want to say embarrassed. If you're asking me the question. This is me on the podcast. Like, obviously, like for us, that Southern Miss kind of hurdle, I don't want to make a thing, but we lost to them in that conference tournament like 5 times by a run and like 8 times over the last couple of years. So it's like, yeah, like that is annoying, and nobody wants somebody. And by somebody, Southern Miss has the greatest coaches in the world. They're the best people. They're amazing to compete against because there's no nonsense, right? But like, if you're a competitor, you don't want somebody to have an edge on you. You know what I mean? And like, that was just them getting the edge again. And I'm speaking just, like I said, I'm not trying to be like, you're asking me the question, like, how did I feel in those 10 hours? Like I felt those things. And I also am thinking to myself, all right, I know I'm not going to sleep. I slept 2 hours. Like, it was not good. Literally 2 hours. I fell asleep about 3:37 and woke up about 5:30, and it was like, oh boy, like we're going to have to figure out a way to do this. Now, we had a game plan of what we thought we would do. Pitching wise, we knew that we would be motivated playing South Alabama, who is, our closest rival. So I thought that was something that we could use positively. We played a great game for 8 2/3 inning. And then I think it's important for the story of our team. Then we miss a fly ball. We miss a ground ball. We have a little bit of then bad luck, but we're trying to get like 9 outs when we just need 1 more out. And it got dicey, and we ended up surviving, but it was also like very annoying. And I had a decision to make after that game. And I always think about this, and I've told the story. I told it again last Monday to a alumni group here I was speaking to. you win, so you should be happy. And I said, you know what? If we're going to have a chance to beat Southern Miss, beat our nemesis with the fatigue that we're probably feeling, the weird feeling of we just won a game, but we kind of, I hate to say it, we were kind of showing some choke tendencies there at the end. And look, that's reflective. I own that. So obviously I know that seems like someone could go, are you saying your players are choked? Listen, if your players do stuff, it's because the coaches. So is how I think. So I'm like, man, I gotta address this. So I ripped our team. I did, which is kind of crazy. You're about to play Southern Miss. You know what happened the night before. And I crushed them for 3 minutes. And then we made a decision, and it was interesting. I asked the guys what they wanted to wear uniform-wise, and we were prepared with our uniforms, but I said, let's just get out of the park. Even though the game was an hour and 35 minutes from that time, we took our bus back to the hotel, which, by the way, is 3 minutes, but we took our bus, we went to the rooms. I told them, take a couple minutes, get the uniform. We got back to the field 50 minutes before first pitch, which is crazy. That don't happen, right? Told the guys on the bus as soon as we got there who's starting, shipped him off the bus. We did our report. So we just wanted everything to be different. And man, we were incredible. Our starter, Zach Crotchfeld, was a mega dude. Our offense was incredible. And we build what ends up being a 9-2 lead before we have our 85th delay of the weekend. And then you have another decision to make. You got 9 outs, you're up 9-2. Like, that'd be a pretty good position. What do you do? And I decided to bring in the guy who gave up that grand slam the night before, and he goes 8 straight outs. So we're up 9-2 with 2 outs in the ninth. Now, did the storybook write itself and he goes 9 up, 9 down? No, he gave up a hit, a walk, a little duck snort, whatever. And we had to make a decision on who we're going to go to when the game got to 9-6. And we brought in our starter from a couple days ago who was terrible. But we brought him in, and he throws his hardest fastball of the year and strikes out a guy, and we win. And that moment and that day and that toughness that our guys exuded, and I asked a couple seniors, Josh Pine included, was I too harsh on the guys yelling and getting after them and challenging them after that South Alabama game prior to the Southern Miss? And this is why you have to love our guys, said Coach. Nah, that was child's play. You could have gone way harder. And it tells you the DNA of our guys, that they just want whatever it takes to get them in the right mindset to win. And once we won that game, I can tell you this much. I wasn't going to let the NCAA not put us in the NCAA tournament at that point with an RPI of 33, with the level of toughness that no one else in college baseball could have done what we did in that 21-hour period. I really do believe that. And, played a good game the next day. We had no arms left, but we battled and had a chance and didn't win, but it put us in the position to earn the opportunity, which we inevitably did. But I think it's an important piece of the story, because without that day, we probably do not get the opportunity to do the things that we ended up doing into late June.
Well, I'll say as a parent and a fan, there's a kind of a running joke my wife and I had. We would say all season long, well, they got to win 2 or 3 of this, or they got to sweep this series to have a chance. And that was the absolute turning point for the Trojans. And it really speaks to the resiliency. I mean, you had, even leading up to that point, you were under 500 in May. During the Sun Belt tournament, you just got over 500. How did you keep the team together during that time where, maybe you just had to hope and, continue to believe that things were going to get better?
Well, I don't say it because the show's back on or to be hokey or whatever, but I do watch Ted Lasso, and you used the word, but I do actually believe like our players are capable of doing amazing things on a national scale. And I try to remind them of that all the time. And it's not just me, what Ben does with the guys offensively, and, what our whole coaching staff and everyone surrounded, like, they know how good these guys are. And there's nothing to be embarrassed about when you lose in April to Georgia or to, Alabama or go on the road to Vandy and lose these games. I don't say it to be defeatist, but like those are tough games. Like the SEC doesn't come to your park except for Alabama. Like they're the only team that comes here. We go everywhere else. It's hard to win. Go look at the SEC records on the road, right? Those guys are 7-13, 8-15. They don't win on the road either because it's hard. And so just reminding those guys how good they are, how good they can be. I do know this, and it's not an after the fact thing. I know they were constantly reminded of that. And maybe when some fortune turns your way, when a big moment is taken advantage of by some players, obviously, we handled a day of huge misfortune with App State, and we were tough enough to come back and win a game and then play a great game against Alabama in front of 3,600 people here. You could argue that was a little bit of a turning point, but guess what? Then we laid a complete egg after a huge delay against South Alabama, and then what do? Dominate back-to-back games, play a really great game against UAB on the road that was great for your metrics, and also just beating, a good team again. I think you felt it coming. I know I did, but you just had to weather the storm. We just had to handle baseball. It's just baseball. Baseball sucks. This is year 20. I know how much it sucks, but it's also beautiful. And it's who can handle those swings of emotion and passion and good luck and bad luck. You just gotta. I give this analogy all the time to players, and I know I don't know if it lands. I don't know, but I always say, if you look, and this is true, years ago they did a study on the best, free throw shooters in the NBA, and the 10 best free throw shooters, their routine never changed. It never deviated out of 0.2 seconds, okay? The 10 worst in the NBA, they had like a 2-second, 2-second differentiation in their routines. Whatever they did, dribble, spin, shoot, spin, behind the back, over the head, whatever. And I said that if you can be convicted enough in everything you do to be consistent, right? It doesn't mean you don't try to get better and change, but if the max free throws I can make out of 100 is 98, the only way I'm going to get 98 is by trusting what I do 100 times. I might not make 100, but I'm going to maximize it. And I think for us, I want to find a way where they believe and trust in themselves enough to maximize their results. And that's a hard thing to believe when you're in struggle. But if you can handle struggle and then get out of that struggle and go up that hill positively, it's like, why they play 162 games in the big leagues? Well, he's a 300 hitter. Well, he's hitting 260 going into September. Well, guess what? 3 for 4, 2 for 4, 1 for 3, 3 for 5. Next thing you know, guy's hitting 295 and he's well on his way. You just got to handle the roller coaster. And I think our team did that at a level that should be talked about a long time from now. Because if you sit there at certain moments, you could say, why in the world would they believe? Why would they compete with this passion? Why would they think they can do these things? They must be idiotic. And the reality is they weren't idiotic. They were just having to fight to put themselves in the position to get their chance at the title, right? And that's what ended up happening.
Well, speaking of the roller coaster, you rode it all the way from the Sun Belt tournament into getting the call to the Gainesville regional, shocking the Gators in Miami there to win that regional, and then got to host at Troy, which it was absolutely amazing the way the city, the fans turned out when you put over 7,000 people to watch a baseball game in a stadium that only holds 2,500. It was just incredible. And you took that all the way to Omaha and the College World Series, and you pitched in the World Series in 2007 with Louisville. What was it like walking on the field as a head coach with Troy in 2026?
Yeah, I've been asked this. They said, was it better as a player or coach? I'm like, as the head coach, you're getting to experience it for everybody. Like, so it's like multiplied by like thousands. You know what I mean? Like, there's not even a number probably. So it was, and it's changed, just the pageantry, the people, the media, the the social media of it. I mean, it's a lot. It's a life-changing experience for all those involved. It really is. Now you get to decide how it changes you. Do you develop the wrong kind of ego and change who you are? Do you use it as a constant motivator? Do you use this for good to parlay future life success? I think you have a choice. And, you have to stay, you got to stay grounded with it, because it's a lot to be thrown on players and coaches and all that kind of stuff, because you go in a stratosphere that you didn't know existed in your world at that time, but it does change your world. But I also feel very fortunate for that too. It does not go without notice that it takes fortune to get the opportunities that you're afforded after, such an experience. And I'm indebted to players for that. And obviously you hope players are indebted to you as the coach, and all of our coaches and staff and support staff and administration and athletic director and chancellor. I think everybody, hopefully it's a two-way street of appreciation. And I feel 99% of the way that everybody does feel that way, because, it's a lot, in a really cool way. And I know, for me, I understand some people think of you different than whatever. And I truly don't care, but I'm a very confident person. I'm incredibly convicted in what I do. And some people may think that I have an ego or whatever, and that's fine, but they also don't know me. But I tell our guys this: if I walk out here and I'm walking to my car and there's trash, I'm going to still pick up that trash. So I probably don't, if that's still who I am deep down as a person, and that's who you are as players, then guess what? Who cares what idiots say about you with a keyboard, right? Or a microphone? It means they don't know anything, because you were still able to hold the door open for people, grab trash, still say thank you, still be empathetic. Then you have not deviated from who you are at your core. And I think that's very important when you reach a certain, level of notoriety that we all have gotten to experience over the last probably 2.5, 3 months.
There were one story that showed what a winning culture looked like. What would it be for you?
Whew, it's a good man. That's one story. Do you want the story from this year's team, like something that you would? Wow,
that's a good one.
That's a great question. I don't think he would mind saying me that. Early in the year when we were not playing well, we were 6-10, not playing well, and Zach Crotchfeld, who ended up, being drafted, obviously, as you very well know, and had an amazing year, and my goodness, the last 2 months was one of the best pitchers in college baseball. He came up to the coach's offices and came in, and he was emotional, actual, you could see the welling of tears, and he's like, I don't know if our guys totally are handling things well, or they know how good they have it. And I know that you guys as coaches would do anything for us. And I know that I would do anything for these teammates and they would do it for me, but we're not connected properly. We have guys that don't get it, and they're messing up other guys' sight. It was all over, but I was like, what do you need? What are you asking? Just tell us what you're asking. He's like, I know this program deserves and is going to win. And I want that. That's why I came here. If I'm not doing enough of my part as a leader, you got to tell me, because I don't want this season to not be what I signed up for. And I was like, this dude hasn't had success in a couple years. He was people can Google this, very famous high school kid, started his career great at Auburn, and then things went really, really south for him from a baseball perspective. And this kid came up to the coach's offices, asked to shut the door, asked to talk to us all, and was not talking about hey, not that I ask kids to, hey, start me and we'll start playing great, which, I've seen that. And sometimes, by the way, the player's right when they say that, but he's just like, I it's my responsibility to be a leader in this team. And I don't think I'm doing good enough, because we wouldn't be playing the way we are. And just owning it like that, even if he was partially wrong, like, no, Zach, we're just not playing good enough. We played a tough schedule. Like, that's probably the reality. But he owned it, came up, and had the gall, the balls, whatever, to come to the coaches and just put his heart out there. I think that speaks, tons of volumes. Look, yes, were our guys amazing at the kids' hospital on Monday in Omaha? And did I have people tell me that we may have had the most invested team they've ever had in there in terms of how our guys were going room to room and whatever? Yes, we have amazing kids, as I said. But I think that Crotchfeld story is one that sticks with me, of like, that's who we attract, and that's who we need to continue to win.
Well, Coach, thanks so much. This has been fun. Congratulations on the season, and good luck in the fall.